In the Americas, the Olmec emerged around 1200 BCE, best known for massive stone warrior heads with square jaws and helmets with ear flaps. Their sculptures and temples and idea of ascending a monument for ritual set the pattern for American societies over the next 2,000 years. Its natural conclusion is a pyramid with steps up the side to the top. A pyramid in the Olmec city of La Venta is about 100 feet high. Temples dominated the landscape like the priest dominated the people. The dominant city in ancient Mesoamerica was Teotihuacan, a culture unto itself. Established around 100 BCE as a religious center, it eventually covered 8 square miles, a 2-mile-long avenue of the dead running through its center, a massive pyramid of the moon, and the even larger pyramid of the sun. It was the largest city to date in the Americas, possibly the 6th largest city in the world at the time. An early pyramid shows a snake's head with a necklace of feathers, an important Mesoamerican god called Quetzalcoatl. Ultimately, Teotihuacan was sacked and systematically burned before being completely abandoned around the 8th century. Evidence of malnutrition point to famine correlated with lengthy droughts leading up to this period. Early archaeological work focused exclusively on palaces and temples, which all showed burning, but the destruction was centered on these sites, pointing to an internal uprising. Mayan culture developed around 750 BCE, also with large temples. Maya elite were writing by 300 BCE, but only 3 uncontested copies of their culture remain. Some beliefs have Olmec origin, like a 2-headed serpent, celestial bird, jaguar, and jester gods, and a cave-related underworld. Maya likely believed the earth was planted on the back of a giant reptile. The universe is divided into the celestial world, the terrestrial world, and the underworld, each with their own gods. At the world's center is the Ceiba, a big tree of life, which allows communication between the 3 worlds. Creation has been through several cycles of birth and destruction, and to keep the cosmos in balance, blood sacrifice was required. Rulers and priests were intertwined, centered on the divine king, and power typically passed to the eldest son, but a king was expected to be a successful conqueror. Due to their jungle isolation, they would outlast all rivals. The last Maya city fell in 1697. In North America, the Mississippian earth mound builders emerged around 800. Major centers with the largest mounds dominated lesser communities, which may or may not have possessed a lesser amount of decidedly smaller mounds. Directly across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri, lies their largest city, Cahokia, with 120 mounds. Its actual name is unknown. They had no writing system or stone architecture. It was likely the largest city in the U.S. until Philadelphia in 1780 and equal to or larger than London in the 13th century. Monk's Mound is the largest, at 100 feet high and 13.8 acres, built bigger and bigger over centuries. Cahokia Woodhenge was a series of large timber circles built around the first millennium, each one larger with 12 more posts than its predecessor. One mound contained more than 250 skeletons, likely sacrificial, including 4 young males missing their hands and skulls, a mass grave of more than 50 young women, and a mass grave of 40 people who were likely killed violently, even buried alive. Most sites predate Spanish explorers, although their culture lasted into the 18th century. Native tribes in this region were almost certainly descendants of the Mississippians. The Mexica, or Aztec, were guided to Lake Texcoco by their war god Huitzilopochtli, where they saw an eagle perched on a cactus holding a rattlesnake in its talons. This prophecy told them they were home, so they built their city of Tenochtitlan, today's Mexico City. They were engaged in perpetual war with their neighbors, most notably the fierce Tlaxcala. In 1450, they blamed a series of droughts, failed crops, and famine on not honoring the gods properly. According to priests, the gods demanded human sacrifice. A lot. The flower wars developed as a ceremonial way to obtain them. During the Flower Wars, men fought gladiator style, aiming to injure the enemy rather than kill them. At the reconsecration of the Great Pyramid in 1487, the Aztecs sacrificed over 80,000 prisoners in 4 days, an average of 15 per minute. It's possible the Aztecs inflated the numbers to intimidate enemies, and a measly 4,000 were killed, not even 700 sacrifices in an 8-hour shift. Sacrifice rituals were performed monthly in an 18-month calendar year. Victims understood their roles as sacrifices since they likely had similar religions. They sometimes had duties like taking prayer requests and leading songs and dances. Estimates of the number of victims annually range from 20,000 to 250,000 and include as many as 1 out of every 5 children. In the usual ritual, the sacrifice was laid on a stone slab by 4 priests as a 5th sliced open the abdomen with a flint knife, then extracted the still beating heart, believed to be a fragment of the sun's heat. Every 52 years, the universe would collapse if the gods weren't strong enough, so all fires were extinguished, and at midnight a human sacrifice was made. If the sun appeared, which it always did, a new fire was ignited on the carcass and taken across the empire. The Tlaxcala were never conquered by the Aztec. They were still at war when the Spanish arrived. Cortez wanted to ally with Tlaxcala and insisted they accept Jesus, but they declined, apparently preferring the endless slaughter of their friends and neighbors as opposed to a single human sacrifice long ago from an unknown world. In the end, they still forged an alliance, since the Tlaxcala really hated the Aztec. 300 years later, Tlaxcala was both Mexican and Catholic. Pre-colonial American cultures were obsessed with cycles of creation and destruction, which mirrored the rise and fall of their many civilizations. We can learn a lot from them, because in the end, it wasn't the world that ended, but their barbarous rituals, and for that, we can be thankful.